YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. I hope y'all enjoyed yesterday's video about the biggest light in college fishing. I'm going to have a follow-up video. There's a lot of really good responses back, a lot of comments back talking about that particular subject, and I want to address everything that was talked about. But hey, today, guys, we're going to talk about one thing that I think we all make a mistake of, and that's fishing our jerkbaits incorrectly. You know, we're out there on the water, whether it's in the wintertime and it's super cold or in the summer and it's really hot. Sometimes we lose focus on how we should be fishing a particular bait, and a jerkbait is one of those baits that you can fish very wrong almost every time you get out there. So today we're going to kind of break that down a little bit. We're going to talk about the gear, how to fish it, and everything in between. I'm even going to show you an underwater view of how your jerkbait is supposed to look and how sometimes it looks when we're fishing it lazy. So guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. See you here in just a second. Alright guys, the very first thing I'm going to talk about is gear. You know, having the right gear is extremely important when it comes to fishing a jerkbait. I'll keep it really brief and simple for you. I like to have a rod that's between 6'6" and 7 foot. I really don't like going over 7 foot unless you're a really tall person. The whole idea behind it is when you go to jerk that rod down, a lot of times you're jerking it either straight up and down or to the side. If you're jerking it straight up and down, you're going to be hitting the water, hitting the boat, especially if you have a really long rod. I use a 6'9" custom speed stick. It's the Squarebill crankbait rod, so it's not even designed for that, but it's just the best jerkbait rod that we make, bar none, no questions asked. That Squarebill crankbait rod isn't even going to break the bank. I think it's around $179, something around in that range. As far as reel goes, I really think you need a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio. You can get away with a 6 to 1. The only problem is the faster it is, the more line you can take up when that fish slack lines you and takes it to the boat, which that happens quite a bit fishing a jerkbait, especially live scoping with a jerkbait. I've seen it more times than not when I'm sitting there jerking it. A fish will actually come up there, eat it, and come right to me. And a lot of times you kind of lose that fish if you don't have a faster gear ratio reel. As far as line goes, I keep it between 10 and 14 pound test. I use Strike King Tour grade fluorocarbon. There's a lot of really great fluorocarbons out there. I know there's some anglers that will say they go down to 8, and I absolutely understand that, and I've done it. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I've just happened to break off a little bit more, and it's because I've been too lazy, if I'm just being honest. Not retying enough, and quite honestly, I think I get just as many bites on 10 pound as I do 8, and I don't have to retie it as much. If you want your jerkbait to go shallower, I'll go to like 12, 14, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish with my jerkbait. But 10 pound is basically where I stay. When it comes to fishing an actual jerkbait, I've used all of them that are out there. I've used, the Megabasses, the Jackals, the Strike King. I mean, just about every one of them that you can see. I've used them. But this is a pretty simple lesson for all jerkbaits and kind of give you an in-depth experience of how to use your jerkbait and how we're all fishing it wrong. So y'all stay tuned right after this. You know, one question I get a lot, though, is how do you pick the right color of jerkbait? You know, do you throw a white? Do you throw a transparent or one that has a lot of flash to it? I try to keep my color selection extremely simple. I always have one that's a whitish hue, kind of like this one here. I'll have solid white sometimes. Anything with white, it really stands out, especially on those darker days. Like a cloudy day, a white really works well. I really like your chrome finishes, like your chrome blues. I have a couple different ones that I use. You can see them right here. You know, and then you also have your transparent jerkbaits. I probably fish transparent jerkbaits as much as any of them. And a lot of times it's just to fool those fish. So if I'm especially if I'm live scoping fish, sometimes you have to have the most realistic looking jerkbait that you possibly can have to be successful. And I think that's, there's nothing really more realistic than a transparent type jerkbait. There's a lot of really great colors. You can really get lost kind of in the color selection. I keep it pretty basic. I keep it between 3 to 5 colors. I try not to make it too crazy. The only time that I will really change my jerkbait up is if I know they're eating a particular type of forage. Like I just came back from Oneida Lake in New York, and they were eating a lot of juvenile perch, so really small perch. So I was throwing a perch color jerkbait a lot, but that's not a jerkbait color that I'm going to throw, say, on Toledo Bend or Sam Rayburn very often. It's just really more specialized. But 9 times out of 10, if I'm throwing a jerkbait, I keep my color selections really simple. I think, you know, there's 4 or 5 colors that you can just throw just about anywhere in this country and you're going to catch fish on them. I hope that helps break down the color selection of the jerkbait. Let's go ahead and get to the most fun part and seeing this thing under the water. Alright guys, let's break down how you should be fishing your jerkbait and how we are all making some mistakes every time we're out there on the water. The very first thing that I see a lot of anglers make a mistake of is they start jerking their jerkbait immediately. What you should do is cast it out there. Instead of just starting to jerk it right off the bat, reel it down a little bit and then start jerking it. What this is going to do is give you maximum depth right at the end of your cast, and therefore getting your bait in the strike zone for a longer period of time. One thing I see a lot of anglers make the mistake of is they start jerking it, and we're making target casts 9 times out of 10. Like you're casting to a tree, you're casting to a particular fish on live scope. You're making these really particular casts, and if you just start jerking it right off the bat, your jerkbait's going to actually only dive about 1 foot to 2 foot in that first 10 feet of actually jerking it. But if you reel it for about 1 or 2 cranks of the reel handle, your jerkbait will be quite a bit deeper than if you just started jerking it right off the bat. The other thing that I see a lot of guys make the mistake of is they actually jerk their jerkbait on too tight of line. So one thing that you can do to combat that, instead of keeping your line tight and jerking it on tight line, actually tighten your line and then throw slack in it with your rod and jerk the slack line. This is going to give the bait way more realistic of an action and help you catch way more fish if you do it like that. Now the last but not least thing is cadences. You know, with the insurgence of live scope and how that's kind of changed jerkbait fishing to a certain degree, I still believe that there's certain situations where you need to have a good cadence. What I mean by a good cadence is instead of just jerking like that, you actually have a set pattern of which you jerk your jerkbait. So one of my favorites is I'll cast it out there, reel it down a little bit, and I'll jerk, pause, jerk, pause, jerk, pause, jerk, pause, and that is a really good cadence. Another really good one is using a jerk pause. So this is one that you will actually watch KVD use a lot. So jerk pause, jerk pause, jerk pause, jerk pause, jerk pause, jerk. And if you keep that cadence up, a lot of times that's going to help trigger those fish. It's just something about it. And last but not least is the old school method of you throw it out there and you reel it down, you jerk it one time and then you let it sit there for like 10 or 15 seconds. I only recommend really doing that when the water's really cold or the fish are highly pressured. But it definitely does make a difference. And I have seen situations where making your bait sit out there for a long period of time will get you more bites. But like we've talked about with live scope, it's really changed the way that we fish a jerkbait. But if you follow these couple of simple things, reeling your jerkbait down right off the bat, jerking a slack line instead of a tight line, I think you're going to see a lot more increases on your hookup ratio and the amount of bites that you get out there on the water. Guys, I hope y'all have enjoyed this video. I hope it's been a good breakdown of how you should be fishing your jerkbait and how we are all fishing it wrong from time to time. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.